Welcome on back to another episode of the Goonery. As always, I'm Ben, the innkeeper. With me, I got Jacob, I got Seth, and I got Brandon. A little bit of an adjustment period here on this week's episode as we transition out of football season. This week, we're just gonna be talking Goonery of the week. We've got a few interesting topics, kind of all over the place. But fellas, how we doing?
Good.
Pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good. Not a very newsworthy week. Not a lot going on, but we're doing good.
Yeah, just a lot of cold this week, pretty much across the entire country, and that's been about it. But Seth, do you want to kick us off with your Goonery of the week?
Yeah, I will. And I kind of came across this earlier today. I know you said kind of getting away from football here, but my Goonery of the week, Chrissy Floyd, looks like she's a journalist for the Draft Network, covers LSU, Tennessee Titans for USA Today, stated that Zach Wilson is a better QB prospect than Trevor Lawrence. What do you guys think of that?
I saw a tweet in reference to that, basically calling Zach Wilson a Kids Bop version of Jim McMahon, Bears quarterback from the '80s that was a QB on the '85 Super Bowl team, and I thought that was pretty fucking funny. But anyone who thinks that Zach Wilson's a better prospect than Trevor Lawrence is out of their goddamn mind. I mean, Lawrence is undoubtedly the best quarterback prospect, just purely on college production since Andrew Luck, in my opinion.
Um, where do I start with this? It's easy to get caught up with stuff like this because it's draft season, so everyone's going to try and pump up a prospect to get a couple of clicks. It's important not to pay attention to those people because those are troublemakers and they just want a conversation made out of people. And clearly it works since it got brought up on this podcast and it's going to come up everywhere else too. So I know what this person's trying to do. I'm not going to make any crack references because I know what's going on here. It's okay. So don't even mind that stuff. I'm not paying attention to it. I like Zach Wilson a lot, but not more than Trevor Lawrence. Let's be real.
I think Zach Wilson's very good. Trevor Lawrence is the clear number one. I'm pretty sure Seth's going to go with Justin Fields as number two. I would go with Fields as two and Zach Wilson's three, but I think those three are pretty clearly above everybody else. I think Zach Wilson's much better than Trey Lance, but yeah, Trevor Lawrence is much better.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you. It's important not to look too far into this because, like, when there's not a lot going on, free agency hasn't quite started yet. When the draft is looming, any reporters are looking just to kind of stir up some buzz, and it worked because, like, they got us talking about it. But it makes you wonder, like, how good is Zach Wilson really playing on BYU? Not the toughest of opponents that they're playing, and he's like cakewalking. And they even compared him to scouts have compared him to like Patrick Mahomes type good. So do you think maybe it's just smoke screens hoping someone like not Trevor Lawrence, he's going to go one obviously, but maybe trying to get Justin Fields to fall down a little bit. Maybe the Jets or someone will take Zach Wilson at two, and hopefully people will see Fields fall because I think it's just smoke screen season is all it is.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Seth, on the fact that it is a smokescreen. It's not a debate for who's number one. It's Lawrence. It's a debate between who's two and three with Fields and Wilson. And with those two guys, I don't think you're going to end up with a bad situation. I think both of them are very, very talented. However, I think we've seen a lot about Zach Wilson in the media the past few weeks. I mean, someone calling out his leadership as well, even though he had the fucking C on his chest all season and just trying to create a narrative. So it's really interesting seeing what's going on the two opposite ends of the spectrum with Wilson so far in the draft season leading up to it. So I'm really interested to see where he goes. I could see him going as high as two, but I could also see him falling. I have no idea where he's going to end up. And that's what I like the most about the draft season. I'm just praying and hoping, because I read something today that it's not outside the realm of possibility that the Bears trade up for Zach Wilson when the Bears are in absolutely no position to do so. And I was circling the wagons earlier in the year, Brandon, you remember, hoping and praying that the Bears would just kind of lose out when they started that skid and fall into that sweet spot in the like 10 to 14, 15 range where I thought Wilson would end up. Now at 20, they have no fucking chance.
Hey, listen, if this is like a little bit of the platform we want to spread about the lack of Zach Wilson leadership so he falls to, I don't know, maybe like 20, so be it. I wouldn't mind starting a false narrative to get my franchise quarterback. Why not?
Hey, real quick though. So was he like for sure a captain? Because I've read some contradicting things said he was like part of the like the leaders council, but not necessarily a captain yet.
Yeah, I'm not too sure on that set either. I don't really quite understand what the difference is between. I mean, I do. It's in the title, but if you had the C on his chest, that just confuses me. If you're not a
Oh
captain, why
yeah.
would you have it? So who knows? I mean, BYU, we all know a little out there, but it is what it is.
Hmm. Yep.
Jacob, you want to lead us into your Goonery of the week?
Yeah, so my Goonery of the week, I'm going to talk about this whole Jalen Johnson situation at Duke. So Jalen Johnson, for anybody who doesn't know, was a highly ranked recruit, one of the best players in the country, went to Duke. It's going to be a one and done. It's going to be a lottery pick. Duke's had a disappointing year. They're 500. They're probably going to miss the tournament. He's had some good moments, but he opted out for COVID-19 yesterday, and there's 3 weeks left in the season, and the general consensus is that he didn't opt out. He just didn't want to play anymore. And he went to three high schools, and when he was in high school, he was at three different high schools. He was at IMG Academy. He also stopped playing in the middle of the year. So this is kind of a pattern with him of just not playing. And apparently him and his camp and the Duke coaching staffs had some issues this year. And I think you got to do what's best for you. But I also think that it looks like just not playing with 3 weeks left is just kind of a weak move. I feel like if you made a commitment to your team to play, then through the whole season you got to finish it out. But you got to do what's good for you. But I don't know. I just think that leaving the IMG Academy in high school, leaving Duke, there's rumors that his foot injury was stretched out because he just didn't feel like playing. I just don't think it's good for you as an NBA player. Like, it's not going to help you at all there.
So I was gonna let y'all, well, Ben or Seth take, the next reply to this, but I'm gonna jump in with this because I tweeted out about my displeasure with how people are treating Jalen Johnson. And here's the reality: collegiate players don't get paid. That's it is what it is. It's an unfortunate reality. So in that regard, like whenever you take the floor, whenever you take the field, ice, whatever you play for in college, you are mortgaging your future every time you go out there. So, with that being said, considering Duke is not good this year, why would, as a college player who's trying to get paid at the next level, I just can't see the logic in risking your body to get injured and miss out being a good pick in the draft. Now, again, like you said, players are free to do whatever they want, and I want everyone to stick to that because if he gets injured, it's like the argument turns to, okay, why was he playing for a Duke team that's not very good? And I tend to agree with that. Now, college is different in a sense because you committed to play there too, but also you have to keep in mind the coaches have as much leverage as anybody on the college ranks. The players don't have that. So when they see the opportunity to see fit and take advantage of their own future endeavors, I am all for them taking it every single time. And it may come up as quitting to a lot of people. And I didn't hear about the other stuff about him switching high schools or going IMG and leaving IMG. I didn't hear about all of that. But in a general sense, if a college player wants to protect their future, whether it's from COVID-19 issues or injury concerns or just the team not being too good, and you're going to be a lottery pick, by all means, I would not mind them sitting out. I think it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, I completely agree there. I don't disagree at all. You're just kind of protecting like your draft status. And then maybe going into Duke, when you are like a basketball recruit and you're like, I'm going to Duke, you aren't expecting them to suck at all. Those guys are consistently like 1, 2, number seeds. And going in, like I said, going into Duke, you're projected to do like really well. And so when you're not playing for like a championship, same thing goes with like bowl season and football. Now with the college football playoff around, uh, if you're not in the big dance or in that tournament, in that playoff, the players feel like there's no incentives. There's like 40 bowl games now. So if you're not playing for a championship, Duke is really bad this year, which is an anomaly anyways. I'm sure they'll be back to normal next year. You're just protecting like your status, keeping your body healthy for the draft, because like you said, players aren't getting paid. So they just got to do what's best for them in their future.
Yeah, I agree with what all of you have said, but I find it objectively hilarious seeing the outrage from media members over a college student who's not being paid, opting out of a season where he could potentially screw himself out of millions and millions of dollars down the road. I don't know if you guys saw John Rothstein's tweet. I mean, John Rothstein, I love that guy. I mean, he's the best in the business at what he does, but tweeting out opting out with 3 weeks left in the regular season isn't opting out with a few enters, few blank spaces in his Twitter and saying it's quitting. I laughed out loud at that tweet. I mean, I think it's just hilarious that Rothstein thinks he has the platform to do something like that. And Brandon, you brought up an interesting point about college athletes not being paid, and we've been seeing an increase in people kind of opting out when it's meaningless for them to play at this point. I had an interesting conversation with a college sports attorney the other day. He represents a bunch of Big Ten coaches, and it was really awesome conversation. But he was basically saying with the name, image, likeness thing that's going through legislation right now. He said he thinks in the future that we're going to see a lot less players start opting out because of clauses in their endorsement deals that they'll end up receiving. So I think that in the long run, the NCAA probably won't be too upset by that. These players making money off them, they're going to be taking money away from the universities, obviously. But I think when you have these star athletes out there, you're not going to be complaining any longer. That's just my opinion on it.
Mm-hmm. No, I get you. And one thing that bothers me is the whole quitting aspect. And I think as sports fans, we get lost in the fandom of sports, as weird as that sounds. But we're so consumed with being entertained that we really don't give a damn about the actual players that's going out there risking their bodies, regardless if it's a non-contact sport or a contact sport. Everybody just wants to be entertained. So when they see a player that opts out and try to protect their future, it's such a controversial thing. But why though? Because it's not you that's out there risking your body. You're just watching. You just want to cheer them on. You just want your team to win. Now, a lot of people haven't got around to, that mindset, but they should, because at the end of the day, you got older people who are going to have their sons or daughters playing sports. They may not want to play because of certain concerns. So when you get put in that position, what are you going to do about that? You just got to put yourself in other people's shoes sometimes, because a lot of people just don't do that. And they just want to they're so consumed with being entertained, and it's not worth it sometimes.
Going to your point there about how people don't realize that they're people and that they just want to be entertained and they want to enjoy it, especially like now what's going on in the world with the pandemic. And you never know, like they say, like you never know what someone's going through and all that stuff. And, mental health, I'm sure, has been really hard with a lot of these athletes and a lot of people in general during this time. And you never know. And maybe, they said he opted out due to COVID concerns, but they're playing a game for free and he's going to be there for a year. And Seth brought up how players opt out of bowl games and how a few years ago when people started doing it, they'd rip him. Well, now people opt out for meaningless bowl games. Nobody really cares. And there's 3 weeks left of the season. He's only played 8 minutes the game before. He has been hurt, had some really good moments. I get him saying, you know what, I have 3 weeks left. The season doesn't really matter. I got to do what's best for me. But you're exactly right on how we just got to stop ripping them. Like the first thing we do is just rip them. We got to think about like, hey, they're doing what's best for them, and think of them as that. Think of it as that aspect too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and staying on the topic of college basketball, we're going to move on over to the Big Ten. And my Goonery of the week, my first one that I'm going to go more in detail on, it goes out to University of Michigan, the Wolverines ducking the University of Illinois. Brandon, I know this one's going to fire you up a little bit, and I'm not saying that they absolutely ducked them, but let's just break this down. Michigan set out for 2 weeks, and they now have this coming week, they have a 6-day gap between their game on Sunday with Ohio State and then their next Saturday game with Indiana. And even during that 2-week break, they kept on going up in the rankings, which I don't understand. That's more so what ruffled my feathers about all this, was that without playing games, they were moving up in the ranking. But the Big Ten they have their minimum of 20 conference games, and right now Michigan's on pace for 15 conference games. And during all this pause, which later came out that they had no positive COVID cases in the program, their women's team played the University of Illinois, but the men's program ducked what might be the hottest team in the Big Ten.
Okay. First and foremost, I think there's something amiss with the whole 2-week cancellation. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just the collegiate gods punishing Michigan again, like they always do, but it seems to be that way. Now, I've seen, Illini fans talking a lot of stuff about they're ducking them and whatnot and blah, 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 all this, that, and the third. Listen, a 14-1 team is going to duck who? Not a damn soul. I'm not buying that whole ducking stuff. I don't know. Listen, I don't have the answers. I don't know why that they canceled for 2 weeks, but you can make an argument before things got closed down. Michigan was the hottest team in college basketball. So this whole narrative of ducking, I don't want to hear that stuff. And truthfully, that fired me up. And I would just hope that when the Big Ten tournament comes around, that Michigan actually does meet the Illini and actually stomps the absolute mess out of them. That would be beautiful, because I'm not having all this nonsense trash talk that's going on right now. Now, usually I'm very pessimistic about anything Michigan because they've caused me more pain than any other team that I like. But this team is special. This team is special. And this clip is probably going to come back to haunt me, but just saying, for right now, this team is special, and I don't think they fear anybody. Juwan Howard can coach his behind off. Those players play for him. They're young and they're energetic, and they know how to play some defense too. So all this stuff I'm hearing, I don't give a damn about none of it. Michigan's probably the best team in the Big Ten. Ohio State has a case. Illini has a case. I get it, but maybe the bias is me and talking, but we're the best team in the Big Ten.
And I'm not arguing how special the team Michigan is. I just think that Illinois' top two is as good as it gets in the Big Ten. You have Ayo Dosunmu, who is arguably the National Player of the Year at this point in time. He, SVP last night, led off the 10 o'clock Sports Center with a graphic that got some blood flowing to a certain region of my body with Ayo Dosunmu National Player of the Year ? He's averaging 21, 6 assists, 5 rebounds, a little under 50% from the field. And then you have a 7-foot, 290-pound Kofi Coburn, who's finally learned how to use his frame and is dunking over every soul in the Big Ten right now. 17 points a game, about 11 rebounds, 67% from the field. That duo, if the rest of the guys on that team can just do their job and play up to where they're supposed to, I would not want to face Illinois in the Big Ten tournament or come March. But that's just me, and that's obviously the bias in me being a student at Illinois. But there's something special going on in Champaign right now.
Ben, I got 2 questions for you. How did you feel about Illinois barely squeaking by Nebraska? And what do you think about Luka Garza maybe being National Player of the Year?
Well, I'll say this. First on Luka, Ayo and the Illini beat Luka 1-on-1, and I think that stands for something. And when it comes to being the most clutch player in the country, I think that is undeniably Ayo Dosunmu. In the crunch time, I think in the last final 3 minutes of the game, Ayo's taking, I think, 32% of Illinois' shots, which is just unbelievable. Teams know it's coming, and they still can't stop them in crunch time. And then in terms of the Nebraska win, don't get me wrong, not a pretty win in the slightest, but a win on the road in the Big Ten. I don't care who you're playing. It's still a win's a win in the Big Ten at this point. The Big Ten is the best conference in the country. I said at the beginning of the year that this conference is going to be a meat grinder. I mean, you're going to get chewed up and spit out time and time again playing whoever in this conference. I mean, even Northwestern. That game really wasn't close last night, but the scoreboard indicated it was closer than it was. Illinois had more turnovers than Northwestern and still handled them for the most part. And Iowa, I was just gonna say Iowa only had 5 points with about 4 minutes left in the game, and he ended with 13. Scored the last 8 for Illinois. So
I turned on the game. I saw Illinois was up 21-7 against Northwestern, but I didn't see the box score. I didn't see the final score. I think everybody in that league except for Northwestern, Nebraska, and Michigan State is going to make the tournament.
Michigan State missing the tournament. That makes me happy. It really does. It really, really does. But go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just the Big Ten. Regardless, I would not be surprised to see 4 teams make the Sweet 16, 5 teams potentially make the Sweet 16 between Illinois, Iowa, Michigan, Ohio State. Obviously, I mean, we haven't even talked about Ohio State really. I mean, they're a top 5 team in the country right now. They're arguably going to end up with a 1 seed, 2 1 seeds maybe out of the Big Ten at this point in time. It's an unbelievable conference, undoubtedly. So it's going to be really interesting to see how things shake up. And I'm excited either way. But Brandon, real quick before we get to your Goonery of the week, I saw Isaiah Livers. I was reading an article earlier today. Basically said that he doesn't know what the conference is going to make Michigan do. Obviously, they're probably going to make up a few of those games. He said that they want to make up the games, the players do, but they're nervous how they're going to handle it just from a fatigue standpoint. Just he said, my legs aren't robotic, and that, I mean, do you think that plays a role into screwing them in the tournament ultimately?
I mean, it depends on how this Michigan team is built because not for nothing, we had a Michigan team a couple of years ago had a plane almost crash, and that team ended up winning the Big Ten championship and making a small run in the NCAA tournament. So I don't know. I mean, this team is extremely talented. They're young, but they're very, very talented, and they also have a very, very good up and coming coach. So about how this team is built, I have a little bit of concern of them making up games, but I don't think in the long run it's going to affect them.
Oh, fair enough. So just moving on, let's get into your Goonery of the week, Brandon.
Sure. So I'm going to go back to football because you can never go away from football. You know, it is what it is. But I'm going to talk about Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer, the new head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And he made a very, very interesting decision, to say the least. So for those who don't know, Chris Doyle was hired as the director of sports performance. I didn't even know that was a role until today, but I mean, whatever. That's besides the point. So Chris Doyle was ultimately put on administrative leave at Iowa because he was being called out by players on Twitter for making racially insensitive comments to the players, one which led to a physical altercation. So you would think that a guy that is under the limelight for something that negative would probably not get another job, or it would take some time for him to get a job. Wrong. Urban Meyer did him a favor as a friend. But one thing Urban Meyer failed to do was read the room. You have a team that's filled with African-American players, and you make a hire like that. So you tell me, what message should that send to Jaguars players? Do you really, really care about them, or do you care about how you are perceived at the end of the day? You know, I must go on a rant because, you know, Urban Meyer is obviously a former coach at Ohio State, a team used to beat up on my Michigan Wolverines. This isn't coming from a place of that. This is coming from a place of me being tired of every place he goes, there's something following him. You had, and this is going from the 31 players at Florida that got arrested under his tenure. You have a cover up of domestic violence at Ohio State, and now this. I don't know what is it going to take for someone to hold him accountable, because at the end of the day, if he leaves a job, he's going to get a job at Fox. He's going to get a job at ESPN, but he's never ever held accountable. No one asks him the tough questions, or he just tap dances around it. So I'm just annoyed at this point of how his winning ways just gets ignored. He wins, so his off the field stuff gets ignored. And one thing I must say, Urban Meyer has done a lot of good stuff in football, but one thing he's failed at is the off the field aspect of making college kids into better men. And just now in the NFL, we only God knows what's going to happen then. He's not the guy you want to bring in for character development. So shame on Urban Meyer, shame on the Jaguars for letting this happen under their nose, because they knew what they was getting themselves into. I don't buy the whole we didn't know or we're disappointed. You're disappointed because there was backlash because of it. Yeah, you didn't feel disappointed while making the hire. So this is a really, really bad start to him as a Jaguars head coach. And I don't think anyone can dispute that this stuff just seems to follow him everywhere he goes. And truthfully, I'm fed up with all the opportunities he gets.
Yeah, I'll chime in here mainly because like he was our head coach for a bit. I felt he really went to Jacksonville so he could mend that Florida legacy and like that bad taste that it left in like all the Gators fans' mouth. Jacksonville's a Gator town, so him going there, hopefully rebuilding that team in the AFC South, getting them back on the level again to compete for the division. But it's not a good look for old Herbs. So, like you said, it follows him everywhere. We've seen it with the covering up of Zach Smith, the 31 players that were arrested in Florida, like while he was there. It this is the third team now, so I don't. I don't really know. It doesn't look good, but it's consistent wherever he goes. Like it seems like hell just kind of follows him.
Yeah, I just want to add one quick thing. I mean, Urban Meyer has just been anywhere he goes, it's always my way or the highway type of thing with him. And I think he's going to quickly realize that in the NFL, if your players don't like you and don't like what you have to say, they're not going to listen to you. I mean, guys in the NFL are not, they're getting paid. They don't like their boss, they're going to voice their displeasure. And I mean, I was never really a fan of the Urban Meyer hiring right out of the gate. And I don't know if it's like even some type of tampering or whatnot, but I don't know if you guys saw this too, that Urban apparently advised Trevor Lawrence on when to schedule his pro day and when to get his surgery on his elbow so he would be okay for training camp. I don't know if that's legal, but there's something about that that doesn't sound like it's okay. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how it ends up in Jacksonville because I don't think his style of coaching translates over to the NFL. I mean, in college he was great at recruiting. I mean, let's not get it wrong or twisted. He had success every single place he went, and it just you can't recruit players in the NFL. You can't promise them things, and you're sure as hell not promising any Super Bowls in Jacksonville like you were promising national championships at Florida or Ohio State.
Going back to how he hired the coach, they ended up letting him go. I wonder how that came across to his players and how they're getting to know him, they're getting to trust him. They hire someone like that with his past, the reason he got fired at Iowa, and then how does that hiring him, then firing him, how does that help his relationship trying to get these random players? And then you mentioned the Florida, what happened to Florida, what happened to Ohio State. I kind of forgot about the Florida thing, how many players got arrested, like Aaron Hernandez is there, that whole situation. But he did cover up the Zach Smith domestic violence. And I remember how shocked, not necessarily shocked, but I was just amazed how he got a job at Fox so quick and it seemed like nobody cared right after. He covers it up and then he's on TV and everybody's buddy with him. And it was just weirding me out. It was just like he covered up domestic violence like knowingly for a while, and he's just on TV and now he has another job, and it's just not a big deal. I don't know. I was unpleasantly surprised by that.
Yeah, real quick, like you said, you didn't really remember it or think about it when it was happening in Florida because they were so dominant.
Yep.
And they were so good. So all that gets swept under the rug. Same with like Ohio State too. It sucks that happened and he covered up such a shitty thing. But when you're winning and you're doing really good, it doesn't seem like people care that much. It did bother me, and I'll tell you why. We got a great coach out of all of that shitty situation, anyways.
I don't know how this is gonna go over in the locker room, but I think one of the biggest things that leads to winning is setting a culture. That is the last thing he did with this hire, regardless if he resigned or not. You cannot make a mistake like that at any term. You can't make that mistake. But then again, I'm doing him justice by calling it a mistake. It wasn't a mistake. He knew what he was doing. The backlash came and he crumbled under it. It is what it is. But right now, and this might be harsh to say, his grade right now, starting off as head coach, is an F. You start a culture, and you're gonna get players that's going to want to play for you. Right now, I don't know. I don't want to make crazy assumptions that they don't want to play for him, but you would have to think that this is on the back of players' minds. It has to be.
Yeah, and then just one more quick bit of news to wrap up this show. I regret to inform, not sure if you guys saw this, came out right about before the show started. Tim Tebow has officially retired from professional baseball. So Mets are not going to be making any more money off the potential of Tim Tebow coming up for one weekend series against the Yankees. And what's Tebow, 33, 34 years old, trying to chase that. Yeah, trying to chase Major League Baseball. I mean, I don't know how big into baseball the rest of you are. I know, Brandon, I know you're a pretty big fan, but Tim Tebow had one of the worst fucking swings I think I have ever seen in my life. But he's Tim Tebow. He's going to go back to ESPN, and he's great at his job at ESPN. Don't get me wrong. I love what he does with the SEC, his coverage there, but I mean, what a waste of fucking time for 3 summers to be playing minor league baseball at this. Like, you have your money. Let's not get that twisted. You have your money, and I get chasing your dream. I do, but I mean, your dream was never to play professional baseball. Your dream was to play in the NFL, and you weren't that great at that either. And yeah, whatever. Tim Tebow, rest in peace to his Major League Baseball career.
Let me just say, I am an admitted Tim Tebow hater because of stuff like this. Him being on the Mets, wasting a roster spot for someone who probably deserved it more, because they was always talk about, oh, he's gonna get brought up and to do what? To do what? Get bats for the players? He had no business being on an MLB roster. He had no business being on a roster. And let me just say this, because I know I have a couple of friends that are Tim Tebow purist. I don't give a damn about pissing them off. I really don't. But I'm gonna pay him a compliment. He is excellent at ESPN. He is really, really good at his job. But dude, you did all this. Let's be honest. He did all this to stay in the limelight. Like, he needed anything else to be in the limelight, because they was going to talk about him to the day he died, because he was such a pariah when he came in. I never understood it because he sucked at football in the NFL. I mean, that's not college, but the NFL, he sucked. And he got so much attention because he took a knee. Okay, let's be honest. And he threw it for 316 yards in the playoffs. Other than that, he stunk at football at the NFL level, and he wasted a roster spot. Good riddance. Be on ESPN. Do what you do. You're awesome at your job, but please, for the love of God, stay away from sports forever, because I don't want to hear it anymore. I really don't.
I respect that. I was super worried you were going to say Carson Wentz to the Colts there. Breaking that news. That's what I was worried about. I was like, oh, no, here it is. Here it is.
Even bigger news. But I'm sure maybe by the next time we record next week's episode, Carson Wentz will be a member of either the Colts or the Bears, and
49ers.
Either one fourth of this show or one half of this show will be very upset. So we will see where that takes us this coming week. But that's going to wrap up this week's show. Just want to say thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the show on YouTube, on iTunes, on Spotify. We'll see you next week.